I'm very excited to be here today to talk about a program that we brought to Gunderson a little over 4 years ago now. It's a program called HeartMath. Have any of you heard of HeartMath before? Super. So just a few of you. In this time, what we started with doing is basically incorporating it with our own employees first, and we employ about 6,000 to 7,000 employees. We have about over half of them that have currently been trained in the program. So we're hoping that after you get the majority of the population that's been trained, it will spread upon those that have not gotten trained in it as well. That last slide was just basically some of the businesses that HeartMath has worked with. It's an international program, but there was a lot of pretty prevalent organizations throughout the country that have been utilized. At Gunderson, we tend to be very much a evidence-based program. We like our science there a lot, and that was one of the reasons why we were able to sell administration and bringing this in. So what they said was, we really need to have something for our employees to be able to take care of themselves, because we've been going through a lot of changes. So there's good things there of helping folks get through the changes at work, but the really nice thing is we have stress. Hopefully you have lives outside of work as well. Obviously your patients, we want them to have lives outside of work as well. So it's definitely something that can be used for work and for home as well. We like to put out there some of the publications, again, just because it is very much an evidence-based, so you can see that as much as we talk about stress management stuff and some of our coping skills we tend to think of as really foo-foo, hugging, touchy-feely stuff, it's not always that case. So hopefully today you'll see that although touch and hugs are nice, there can be some other things that we can incorporate as well. The main concept, and I'm going to apologize, I'm going to kind of go through some of these pretty fast because there is a lot of materials. The program that we teach is an 8-hour program. So to get it kind of incorporating the key concepts of it, we will really keep things moving along. So I kind of picked out some of the main pieces that I thought was important, and I will do my best to try to get through all of the content that I have included here. The key concept of HeartMath and what is important, and that's why I included in my bio, is that I'm enjoying now, finally, I'm a mom of 3, well, 4 if you include my 44-year-old that I have at home as well, child, and about a 16-week-old puppy. So we have a very busy house at home, is taking care of ourselves. And so to put yourself as a priority, and I think that's one of the important things, not to just stress with your patients, but for all of us in the room as well. You all work in healthcare because you care about other people. If you didn't, there would be definitely higher paying jobs that you could get enrolled in, right? But we do it because we care about others. So as caregivers, we tend to put ourselves on the back burner. And so that's one of the things that I'm enjoying right now, is reminding myself that, you know what, I'm just as important as everyone else. And the really cool part is I might be putting a little bit of time up front of taking care of me, but then I have so much more left, and I'm not burnt out and fried at the end of the day, that I have to give to the people that mean the most to me. So yeah, I might do really well at work, but when I was coming home at the end of the day, I was fried, and I felt like I was just absolutely burnt out and exhausted. And the people that I loved and cared about the most were the ones that were kind of getting the short end of the stick, right? So I wanted to make sure that I needed to take care of me so that I would feel good, and that the people that I loved and cared about the most would have stuff that's left. And I think that's a good message, not just for yourself, but for your patients as well. So we create the healing environment from the inside out, so that what we're working on inside, we have more to give on the outside, or to those that are around us as well. So the key with HeartMath, and I think, we used to use the saying of fake it till you make it. So like if you put on that smile, eventually you'll start to really feel it. In some instances, I might say yes, that might be true. But in other instances, with HeartMath, the key that we focus on is really authentic care. And so if we really fully believe it and we're really fully feeling it, it's genuine. And so what I always encourage folks to do whenever I do a class is I want you just to go ahead and just point to yourself. So everybody in here, it might sound silly, but just go ahead and just take your finger and point to yourself. Almost everyone is pointing to this area here. That's our area around our heart. I have yet to have a class where somebody does this. That hasn't happened yet, right? So when we think about our heart, that's really kind of the authentic part of us, right? And when we fully give ourselves to someone else, or when we really care about ourselves, or we we challenge ourselves to put ourselves out there, expose our true selves to others, that can be very vulnerable for folks, right? So that's the real authentic. And we actually have terms that we use that kind of refer to that, right? So in my heart of hearts, I know, or coming from my heart, or a heartfelt sympathy to people. We say those things when we really genuinely mean, like, I really care about you, and I care about how you're feeling. So in my heart, I really care about you. This is really important when we're talking about the care and what we feel for others. Because if we're not authentic with it, we're not really genuine about it, and it doesn't have the same meaning as when we really fully are authentic in the care that we give. So that's the one thing that I'd like to put out there for yourselves for as a provider, but then to also stress that, because we're going to get into some other ways that this is really important when you're working with your patients as well, okay? So just think about that. Authentic care, being really genuine about it. And yeah, maybe you could fake it till you make it, but ultimately people sometimes can figure that out, and we'll talk about that and what that means. So I'm kind of one of those science nerds, so some of these science parts in here I really enjoy, so bear with me on this. But I like to throw some of this in here because there's a couple on here that I'm like, oh, I remember in all my science classes, I don't know if I necessarily learned this piece of it. But our heart actually has its own complex nervous system called the heart-brain. And our heart sends a lot more signals to our brain than our brain does to our heart. And that, when I heard that, I was like, that's a really different concept than I think what we learn in school. So this is really important when we talk about the importance of our heart, and again, being authentic with our true feelings and our thought processes. And I think if you think about when you are feeling stressed or you're feeling overwhelmed or you have a lot on your plate, I think most of us would probably say that is not the time that we're typically at our peak performance. Do you agree with that? So this last comment here, I think, definitely plays true to that the heart signals affect our brain centers involved in decision-making, creativity, and our emotional experience. And I think that as providers, you probably are already telling folks, this is not the time when you're feeling very stressed or overwhelmed or you're very anxious about something to make major life-changing decisions, right? That's typically not the time we encourage people to do that. So intuitively, some of these things we already know, you might already practice, but it's just kind of putting all these pieces together for us. What HeartMath is really focusing on is our heart rate variability. So we know, all of you that, with all of your science background, you know that when we take a person's pulse, you're not getting the exact same beat every time that your heart is beating, right? So it's called our heart rate variability. It's that beat-to-beat change that we're experiencing. So if we take a look at this graph, our heart is actually speeding up. And this is important because what happens is over time, we start to notice a pattern that's emerging, okay? So that's what HeartMath is really focusing on, is we're focusing on the heart rate variability. They actually have some cool, again, if you're really into the science portions of it, and those of you that really like biofeedback, there's some really nice biofeedback tools that HeartMath has that will actually show what that heart rate variability can look like over time and how that affects the body. And we're going to get into this a lot more in detail here in just a moment. But when we're measuring that heart rate variability and we're taking a look at this slide, what you notice is over time, this particular one has some nice smooth patterns, right? It looks almost kind of like a nice little roller coaster ride, some ups and downs in it, but it looks like a pretty steady and consistent ebb and flow there. This heart rate variability is what it looks like when you're experiencing positive emotions, okay? And we'll talk about the difference between positive emotions and negative emotions in just a moment, but I wanted to show what heart rate variability is looking like when we're experiencing positive emotions. When we experience positive emotions, we have something that we call being coherent. And I like to think of coherence as, any of you guys watch row teams in the Olympics, when the Olympics are on TV? I watch them and I think, wow, isn't that not just amazing how you can have that many people in a boat, that they are all working together so well that the paddles up, paddles down, paddles up, paddles down. And they do that so well. They're effective, they're efficient, and they get through the finish line really, really well. They're at peak performance, right? Imagine, if you will, if any of those folks on that row team get off on their patterns. So maybe One or two of those people might be putting their paddles in the water when the rest of the team is putting theirs out of the water, taking them out of the water. You're probably still going to cross the finish line, right? But do you think you'll perform as well as a team as the other teams that really are in sync and they're doing really well together? You're probably not going to have as good a performance, are you? And if you think about, if you put that in context of when you're experiencing stress or any type of negative emotions where we're not at our peak performance, we're not coherent, you're going to have the same type of effect. So you're not going to be performing as well as what you normally could be if you weren't experiencing those negative emotions or those stressful experiences. Does that make sense? So when we're coherent, our immune system is working really well, and I think of that. So you think of folks that are going through high periods of stress. The example that I always like to give is college students. Think of college students at finals time. What typically happens to them when finals come and when finals are done? They're getting sick, right? And that makes a lot of sense because you have high stress in a short period of time and they're just struggling to get through. And then when they're done, their body is like, whoa, that was a marathon. And now they're absolutely just depleted. So their immune system runs down. Their nervous system gets run down. Their mental capacity just doesn't function quite as well. So you notice all those things when we are experiencing high stress, negative emotions. And when we're coherent, you don't have that type of effect because your body is working much more efficiently and effectively together, okay? Some of the health benefits that we get when we are coherent is reduced blood pressure and hypertension. We've been doing this long enough now that we are getting some of our employees that will come back and say, wow, this program was so beneficial to me that I'm noticing that their blood pressure medications have been reduced, if not stopped. Some of our employees will say, boy, I don't have the problems that I used to have with my asthma because I've learned to be able to control myself a little bit better that way. We've had some of our own employees be able to say, with the help of my provider, I don't need to be on my anxiety medication like I needed to be before because I have these tools now that I can use instead. So it's neat to see the science part of it and to have HeartMath say these are the benefits that you can experience, but to be able to, as an instructor, hear people that have gone through our class that really took to heart what you experienced to them. I know even for myself, I've been working in the field for over 15 years of stress management. Thought I had this down pretty good, right? Was having good success rates in all my stress management programs that I did with our employees before. But I myself didn't really truly get the full benefits of real stress management until I started incorporating HeartMath into my own everyday life. And where I used to feel exhausted, like I'd basically survived the day before, now I feel like, wow, I enjoy bath time with my kids now. And instead of going, what part of keep the water in the bathtub don't you get? I don't have that anymore. I don't have my daughter saying to me, Mommy, thank you for not yelling at me for getting water on the floor. As a mom, oh my gosh, that just about breaks your heart when it's like, wow, that was what you were getting from me, wasn't it? And now we can kind of laugh at it. They still have to clean up the mess. I'm not going to do that for them. But they don't get the grizzly bear that was coming home before. So that increased calmness, well-being, increased emotional stability, I can tell you firsthand, I've definitely experienced that. I can also tell you, not that I had a problem with high blood pressure before, but my blood pressure went from like where it was like around the 110s to like upper 70s to now it's like 100 over about 50, 60. I can tell you my resting heart rate has gone from being in the mid 60s to now my resting heart rate's really in the mid 40s. So I can tell you for myself firsthand, I definitely have noticed this as well. So our patients are saying this, our employees are saying this, I firsthand have experienced this as well. So those are just a few of the health benefits that you can get. So how important is that when you're talking with your patients about some of the stressors that they're experiencing, and some of them might be suffering, especially with those bottom two areas, that you can say, I can help you with something that I can guarantee you is going to help you to feel better. And already when you're at such a stressful time in their lives, to be able to say, let me help you work with this so that you don't have to feel like this. What a gift that you can give to somebody. And what a gift you can give to yourself, because if you practice what you preach, you too should be able to feel these benefits as well. Okay? And I don't know about you all, but I definitely could use some help with my brain functioning as well. And here's some of what when we are coherent, some of the benefits that we get with our brain function as well. Increased ability to self-regulate, definite help with long-term and short-term memory, ability to focus. So if you have a big project that's at hand and you really need to get to the grind of it, if you practice the technique I'm going to teach you in just a few minutes, you should be able to focus and concentrate better. Increased reaction times. What we work with our patients and our employees on is this creating a healing environment from the inside out is for healthcare institutions. HeartMath has some also for first responders and emergency workers. They have a specific program for military personnel that come back that are dealing with PTSD. They have programs that are in place for the school systems for students because, boy, if we as adults are having a hard time with coping skills, our students, when we have kindergartners saying that they experience stress, wow, we've done that as a society. So there's stuff out there that's helping them as well. So they have, obviously, the same type of concept, it's just that they're giving different examples for folks to work on. So they've been able to prove that they can increase test scores, improve the ability to learn as well. So you guys, when you guys have your second speaker this afternoon, you're gonna be just all raring and ready to go for. So that's awesome. So you can say, what is this technique? So tell us, what is this thing that you're talking about? Super simple, super easy. The best part of it is when you're dealing with your patients and they say, I don't have the time to do this. I am so stressed. I just don't have the time. My comment to folks when they say that is you have to breathe anyways. Let's make it count, right? You're going to breathe anyway, so let's just make this work a little bit better for you. There are 3 simple steps. The first one is heart focused. The second one is heart-focused breathing. How many of you have done breath work before? A fair number of you. Guess what? That's the first 2 steps. You already know how to do half the technique, okay? And I think we could probably say when we're working with our patients, breath work, pretty easy thing for folks to be able to do. Doesn't cost anything, and they can do it very quickly, and they can do it anywhere that they're at. Doesn't require any extra tools, right? The last one is something that we call heart feeling. So just by doing the first 2 steps, we know that you're going to get good health benefits for it. There's lots of good research on there on breath work, right? The last part is adding this heart feeling in, that positive emotions. And we're going to talk in just a minute about the importance of that and the benefits that you get from that. But I wanted you to be able to experience it first. So when we talk about heart feeling, basically what we're looking at is something that creates a positive emotion for you. So you're thinking about a person, a place, an event, a vacation maybe if you're a person that really likes nature and you like to get out in nature, you can think about something that you experienced it, whether it's a sunset or it's your garden or a time that you were at the beach or something like that. Anything that makes you feel a positive connection with that, okay? The trick is you're not just thinking about that positive experience, but you're actually putting yourself back there to really relive that experience again. So here's an example that I can give for you. I can think about the day that my oldest was born. And I can remember how excited we were that, oh my gosh, it's finally here. We're finally going to do this. This is finally going to happen. And just how excited everybody was that we were finally going to have this baby. Or I can really remember what it was like when the doctors placed her in my arms and just looking at this beautiful little being. And I remember the first words in my head was, my cup overfloweth. I just was so filled with love. As a matter of fact, when I just think about it, I can get emotional about it. So for those of you in the front row, you can probably see my goosies and the little tears that come to me. I'm really allowing my body to really embrace those emotions again. See the difference of that? So you really need to find something that you connect with really well. The trick that I tell you is, first of all, be kind to yourself. This is behavior change. All of you work in behavior change every day. So we can tell our patients, it's not easy. If it was, I wouldn't have my job, right? So we know that it's difficult. So first of all, you just have to remember to use it. So even if you or your patients don't remember to use it at the time, that's okay. If you remember it 3 hours down the line, 3 days down the line of, wow, I could have used that technique. That would have been a good time to be able to use that. I consider that a success. Because we can't work on things to improve our stress and our coping skills if we don't know what we need to work on, right? So anytime we're aware of what our stressors are, I consider that a success. That's number one, be kind to yourself. So the other thing is, when you're first practicing the technique, although yes, you should be able to use it in stressful times, and it is definitely very helpful in those moments, it's very good to try to use this skill in times that you're not experiencing stress, because then it's a lot easier to be able to do, and you don't feel the extra pressure of trying to relieve the stress that you're already experiencing right now. So I'll tell people, when you get up in the morning, practice it. When you go to bed, you can practice it. When you're driving to and from work, you can practice it. Hopefully you're not having a day that's so busy that you feel everybody needs to know that you're so busy you can't even take a bathroom break. I don't know why we do that, but some people do. I was so busy today, I couldn't even use the restroom. I was so busy. But when you do get a chance to use the restroom, practice the technique. Nobody needs to know what you're thinking about, right? So take full advantage of the fact that you get a bathroom break during the day. So point is, you can use it in a lot of different contexts, and any time is a good time to practice it. And then you're going to get health benefits from it, whether you're stressed or whether you're not feeling that stress as well. Okay? So we're going to practice this so you can see what this feels like, but I need for you all to think about a positive emotional experience that you had that you can relate to, and that you can really feel like you can delve into those emotions. When we do it, I want you to try it with your eyes shut first. As you get more comfortable with it, you can definitely go ahead and do it with your eyes open. But it helps to eliminate all that external stimuli that you can have just by keeping your eyes open. We want you in time to be able to do it with your eyes open, because if I'm working with you as a patient and you've done something that's causing me to feel a little stressed, or if I'm driving in my car and somebody cuts me off, and I might too have a little bit of issues then as well, right? So in time, I want you to be able to do it with your eyes open, but for now, be kind, do it with your eyes shut. And the other warning that I give is, we are human beings. I have what I think I call monkey mind, if you guys know that scientific term. It is when you are really trying to concentrate and you are trying to be mindful, but those monkey thoughts keep popping into your head, and it's like they're just swinging from pendulum to pendulum of, here's my grocery list for the night, and I can't forget to do this when I get back to work. So when those monkey thoughts come in, recognize the monkey, allow the monkey to do its thing, and then let it go so you can get back to the thought at hand of trying to have that positive emotional experience. Okay? Do you all think that you have a positive heart feeling that you can work with? Wonderful. So let's go ahead, let's close our eyes. Feet firmly planted on the floor, if you will. As comfortable as you can in the chairs you have today, let's go ahead and allow ourselves to just relax. What I'd like for you to do is picture, if you will, that your feet are like tree trunks, and you have big roots growing from the bottoms of your feet down into the ground. You're starting to feel very centered, very grounded, strong and stable. And then what I would like you to do is to picture that area around your heart. Your heart is such an amazing organ in our bodies. It does all these wonderful things for us every day without us even having to ask it to do so. So take a moment to appreciate your heart and all that it does for us every day. As you're appreciating your heart, let's take a moment to take some deep, rich breaths in, breathing in, and breathing out. As you keep focusing on that breath in and breathing out, picture all that fresh, rich oxygen going into your body, filling your whole body in all of its cells with life and energy, helping you to feel alert and awake. And as you keep taking those breaths in, this is the time that I invite you to focus on that heart feeling. What is it that makes you feel happy and appreciative and grateful today? This is your gift that you can give to yourself today and any day. So take a moment to enjoy that gift. And then when you feel ready, I invite you to slowly bring your attention back to the room. How did that feel for folks? First of all, nobody fell asleep, so thank you for that. I appreciate that. Sometimes when I have my long classes, we might have to go do a little tap every once in a while, but you all did very well, so thank you. How did that feel? Relaxing? Feel good? Didn't take very long for us to do? That's a good thing, right? Really, as you practice this more, it can be done in as quick as about 20 to 30 seconds. You breathe in and you focus on the area around your heart, and then you breathe out your heart feeling. So it can be done very quickly. Doesn't require any money, doesn't require any special tools. Pretty quick thing for us to be able to do. So something that you could work on yourself, and then something that you could work with your patients on. The other little disclaimer that I like to say, and the homework assignment that I always give to folks anytime that I do this, is now when you leave here, what I'd like to invite you to do is to go home and think about what are some different heart feelings that you can experience. What are some different things that you'd like to maybe be able to tap into from time to time? Because I can tell you, although I gave my example of when my daughter September was born and how great that makes me feel and how I can really get that strong positive connection with her, there are times when she might be the one that's making me feel like I need to use this technique, right? So then probably not the best example to use at the time that I need to. So to kind of have a different bag of tricks of different things. And I can tell you that the more that I've practiced this over the years, the longer that list is that I can find things appealing. I have been in the Midwest all of my life, and these last 2 years I can actually say I actually enjoy winters now. I can say I've never done that before, but I can look, and I remember I was driving on my way to go do a presentation for work. It was right after one of our wonderful ice storms that we've had these last couple of years, and it was, I think, probably about 30 below zero that morning, and the roads were just icky, and I happened to glance up on the hill, and I could see all these deer tracks on the hill, and I remember just looking up going, that is so beautiful. I could just picture the deer up there playing, and that's exactly where my mind went. And then as I was driving down the road, I went, what is wrong with you? Who have you become? It is icky outside, and you just found something that was pretty today? This is amazing. So anyways, it can happen, firsthand experience. So this is the technique that I would like for you, very simple, that you can use yourself and that you can teach your patients, all right? We call it, wait for it, the quick coherence technique. Isn't that a concept? To quickly get ourselves coherent. That's what it's called, is the quick coherence technique. We're going to talk about how this works a lot more, and again, really delving into the emotional aspect, because in case you haven't figured out by now, that is the key concept with the heart math technique, is really working with our emotions, all right? How many of you have ever walked into a room? You have no idea what has taken place in that room, but you can know for a fact that something good has not taken place. There is something bad that has happened in that room. That saying, if you could cut the tension with a knife. Okay, you've all experienced that, right? And likewise, there might be somebody that you know that you don't know what it is about that person, but that person just has such a magnetic personality that you just love to be around that person. Or on the flip side, there's a person that when you see that number come across your caller ID, you go, oh, I just don't have the energy to deal with this person right now, right? You laugh because you all know people that are like that, right? There is a true scientific background where they've gotten information about this, and it's called our electromagnetic field of the heart. So we know that we're electromagnetic beings, right? If we weren't, we wouldn't be able to do an EEG or an EKG. So we know that we have that in our bodies. Our heart portrays messages, emotions, emits them around us. Would anyone like to care to guess about how far our heart can emit those emotions around us?
20 feet.
You're close. 10 feet around us. I would say that it could go further than that as well, but for sure at least 10 feet they've been able to measure. Our brain does the same thing. Anybody want to guess how far our brain emits energy around us?
Shorter.
2 feet.
A couple inches. You don't count because you've taken the class. Yeah, a couple inches. So big difference, right? So for those of you that are sitting close to someone, you hope that they're having a good day today because you're sitting around in their emotional experience today. We laugh, but we really are walking, broadcasting radio towers. And I think, I know myself and others, we have 3 instructors within the organization, and the 3 of us really take this to heart. We are very authentic about this. So when I am having a bad day, I really try my best to not allow myself to stay stuck in that bad day because I know that I could have an effect on somebody else's day. And I don't want that to happen at all. First of all, I want to feel good, right? So selfish side of me, I want to feel good. But I definitely don't want to be the one responsible for bringing somebody else down. And I'm trying to become more cognizant of this so that if I am experiencing a bad day, to recognize it and then do my best to try to move on from that. Not that it's necessarily going to fix anything, but if I can at least switch how I'm feeling and make it a little bit more positive, then I feel better as well. So there really is true background to that. So think about that when you're, having a bad day. Try to change that radio station that you're broadcasting out to others. And this next slide, this young man, his name is Josh. The dog's name is Mabel. Josh just so happens to be the poor son of the lead research person from HeartMath. So you can bet that he's probably been in a couple of different experiments. And in the experiment that I'm going to show you and really truly how this magnetic field around us works, Josh was instructed, Josh and Mabel are going to start in 2 different rooms, okay? Josh is going to walk into the same room that Mabel is in. He's not going to touch Mabel. He's not going to talk to Mabel. He is truly going to walk into the room and all he is going to do is send love to Mabel. This is the results of that study. So you can see what Josh and Mabel were like here at the very beginning. Look how they sync up with their heart rate. So this is heart rate variability that they're measuring. And then for those of you that don't believe in separation anxiety, or why your pets do what they do or your children do what they do when you leave, really, look at what poor Mabel goes through. Poor Mabel's having some serious separation anxiety from Josh. All Josh did was love on Mabel. I had a social worker that went through one of my classes, take the class, and then we come back in 2 weeks and we have the second part of our class after 2 weeks. So it kind of gives them a chance to practice, see how things work, obstacles, barriers, that type of thing. And she came in and said, I had a very interesting experience. Was it HeartMath? I don't know, but sure seems kind of coincidental. She got a call from one of her coworkers that said, we have a really disgruntled patient that is very much not happy about being here, really needs to be here. Can you come in and talk to him? Sure. So she goes to his room. He is not having anything with her at all. So she asked for permission just to sit in his room with him. And he said, I don't care, but I'm not talking to you. So she said, I just sat in the back of the room and I thought, well, now is as good of time as any to practice my HeartMath technique, right? So she said, I just sat and all I did was just send compassion and empathy, which, by the way, appreciation and gratitude, by the way, are the 2 strongest emotions that we as humans can experience. So just know that. But she said, I'm going to send compassion and empathy for this person because clearly something must really be bothering him that this is the way that he's acting today. She said, in time, she goes, that tension that she could have cut with a knife, she said it just felt like things were changing a little bit in the room. Nobody said anything, but she said she could just feel like the room was just feeling a little bit more pleasant as time went on. And she said about 10, 15 minutes later, all of a sudden he just started spewing stuff to her. And she said, I was absolutely astonished and amazed. I thought, oh my gosh, this stuff I think really works. And she said where he went with what was bothering him. She goes, I don't know how I could have ever gotten there on my own, because what ended up being the thing that was bothering him was not something that even crossed my mind as to a bother of why he would not want to be within the healthcare institution. So she said, was it heart math? I don't know. It just seemed really ironic that that was my intention. I intentionally went there with the attitude of, I'm going to change the emotions around me to try to protect myself. I think of it as kind of a protective barrier, because for any of us that are asked to talk to somebody that's maybe not quite ready to make that behavior change, if people are not ready, they will let you know. Do you agree? Yes. So if you've ever been on the receiving end of that, it sometimes is not very pleasant. And if you don't have that protective shield on for yourself, it's easy to take that on yourself, right? Especially when you're working with, new moms that that the little ones definitely are in danger, and we want the best for both mom and baby, right? That's why you do what you do. So put that shield on for yourself, and then encourage that to be sent on to others around you. But this is a real scientific background of this is exactly what happened. And this is with a dog. With a dog. Poor little Mabel, okay? I think one of the interesting concepts, and again, I've been doing this for 15 years, and when I bring this concept up to folks, if people are not completely ready for behavior change, this is a part where people can get a little bit resentful to you for bringing this up. I say stress is not the situation, and by that I mean it's very easy for us to think about our obstacles or our barriers as our stressors, right? And those are the things that are causing me to feel stressed. So I am stressed because I have so many emails that come across my desk every day, I feel like it's hard to keep up. I have so many voicemails that come through on my phone every day, it's hard to keep up with that and the emails that come through. I am stressed because I see so many patients that come through every day that I'm supposed to help them, but how can I help them if they're not ready to help themselves, right? So I feel stressed because of all of these obstacles and barriers. But I challenge you to think of it this way. Do you feel the exact same amount of stress every day? Are some days better than others? Do you have the same things that happen pretty much just about every day? Yeah. So some days are easier than others, aren't they? Think of it in this way. I can say the words public speaking. And typically people usually have one or two reactions. One might be where they lose all color in their face and they say, I would rather get a fork in my foot than for you to think that I am going to get up in front of that TV camera and do an interview. It is not happening. And then you can have another person that says, oh my gosh, I would love to do the interview. So I just want to be clear. What channel and what time, because I want to make sure I call all my family and friends and let them know I'm going to be on TV and I need to get my DVR set, right? Same concept, two totally different reactions to it, right? So I would say stress isn't necessarily our obstacles or our barriers or our situation, but it's rather our emotional reaction to what that situation is that we're dealing with. Because again, you all said some days you get through better than other days. The incredible part with this is if that truly is the situation, if that it's my emotional reaction to the stress or things that are making me feel stressed is my emotional reaction, I have the ability to be able to change that. Now, is it always easy? No. Does it sometimes require a little bit of work? Yes. The main part is just being aware that that is what's bothering you. So I'm not feeling good today because this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. So what can I do to make that change? What can I do so that that's not the emotions that I'm feeling? And maybe it's not always going to a happy place. So as a stress management person, I cringe when people say, go to your happy place. Because sometimes I don't want to go there, but I don't want to feel like I'm feeling now either, right? Or sometimes it's not appropriate to go to that happy place. But you don't have to feel the way that you're feeling, okay? And we're going to talk about a perfect example of that. We saw this bottom slide here earlier, right? That was what a person was experiencing when they were experiencing coherence, positive emotions. The top slide is what most of us are probably in the majority of our days when we're not intentionally trying to make ourselves coherent, is what we call being incoherent. And you take a look at that graph and you say, wow, that's a lot of peaks and valleys and kind of some sharp edges. I look at that and I think, wow, that's what I would look like if I was riding with somebody that was learning how to drive a car for the first time, right? On the gas, on the brake, on the gas, on the brake. So if you think about that and the wear and tear it does on your car, we would never drive our cars like that, right? But we do that to our bodies all the time. So talk about wear and tear that happens on your bodies. And we do have the power to be able to change that so that we don't have to experience that all the time. What's interesting about these two graphs is that this is from the same individual, a few minutes apart. So in the first graph, this gentleman was asked to think about, so he was wearing the cool technology stuff that I was talking about that HeartMath has. He was hooked up to one of those, and this was his emotional response, measuring that heart rate variability. Think about something that caused you to feel stressed over the last week. That was his emotional response. A few minutes later, they said, think about something that you appreciated or you were grateful for in the last week. And literally within a couple of minutes, he was able to make that shift into that coherent state and have that type of response. So it can happen very quickly. And again, we do have the power to be able to change that. So I like to show that just so that you can see what the difference is. And so again, just sometimes by looking at those graphs, you can really see like, wow, that really is a lot of wear and tear on the body by looking at what it's like to be incoherent. HeartMath worked with, and I think this is important for particularly those of us that work with patient care, because in some jobs we can say, you know, if I make a mistake, it's not life or death, right? So it might be a little inconvenient for us, but big deal. In some of our roles, we can't always say that, can we? If some of our providers and people that care for patients make mistakes, it really can be catastrophic results that can happen. So one of the things that HeartMath did is they worked with a large pharmacy chain, and they measured their stress incidents before taking these pharmacists through HeartMath, and then they measured them again afterwards. And what they saw was a 40 to 71% reduction in medical errors after finding this appropriate way of being able to deal with the stressors that they're experiencing during their workday. That's a pretty significant reduction, I would say. So if you can see that with a pharmacist, and you can see that with how they were able to change their work and their results, think about how you could function better as a worker, as a human being, as a whatever hat it is you want to play, and then think about really the benefits that you could give to your patients by helping them to learn these positive coping skills when they're dealing with life stressors. And part of how that happens, and part of what happens over time, we hear a lot nowadays about resilience, and that's one of the things that you want to work with your patients, right? So yes, you can get them to quit while they're pregnant, or you can get them to reduce while they're pregnant to get the benefits. But what can we do to help them keep this long term, right? How can you keep that staying power? And it's by helping them get resilient and building up that resilience. And I can guarantee you, if they can find a way to be resilient, they're going to be a lot more successful in staying quit or reducing their usage after baby comes along. Why it's important for us to figure out how to be resilient is because you're still going to have life stressors. Life is still going to happen. A big part of what causes us stress is other people. Unless you're going to isolate yourself someplace, I think you're still going to have that problem, right? So we can't change other people. Stuff is still going to happen to us. But we can bounce back a lot quicker when life throws us those curveballs, okay? You can resist that sense of like, there is no way that I'm changing. So for all of you that are dealing with the patients that don't even want to talk to you because of this, if you can help break down that wall, because part of the fear is the fear of the unknown, of what is it going to be like? How is this going to happen? What am I going to feel like? I know what I feel like when I pick up that cigarette, and I know what it feels like when I can get that first puff and I can just feel my stress go away. I don't want to lose that coping skill. But if you can work with them and show them that they don't have to feel that way and there's other ways that we can do this, it kind of helps to break that down. Maintaining a positive attitude. We already know, I think all of us realize that if you don't deal with the stress that you're experiencing in time, that everyday stress becomes our chronic stressors, right? And if we don't deal with that, it's going to have major impacts on our health. 70 to 80% of our doctor's visits are somewhat stress-induced. That's huge. I always say that's the H factors, everything from herpes to hemorrhoids to heart attacks. People aren't going in on Friday afternoons when they're excited about their work week being done with their heart attack, are they? That's not typically when it happens. So think of that. What a more important time than when you're expecting a little one, you're bringing a new one in, to be able to have that safe and secure and nurturing those relationships in your life. Trusting your instincts, staying focused. I am a firm believer that there is no such thing as failure unless you learn or you fail to learn from your mistakes. Our mistakes and things that we experience is all just a part of life. But if you miss the boat on what you could take from that time, that's when you're experiencing failure. So if something doesn't work the first time, if you don't succeed the first time of quitting, that's okay. You can learn from every time that you're trying to make that attempt. So don't let those past attempts put you down for why this hasn't worked. Let's try something else. What did work? What were some of your obstacles? How can we get ready for that, okay? So don't let that be a discouraging. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about positive emotions and negative emotions. When we're talking about our negative emotions, we have 1,400 different biochemicals, and these next few slides I think are probably a couple of the most important slides that we have in the whole packet. 1,400 different biochemical changes that are happening in our body when we're experiencing negative emotions. And that nervous system just gets totally overwhelmed that it just can't process it all. It's kind of like when you look at your to-do list and you're really feeling overwhelmed and you go, I have no idea where to even start. I don't even know what to do, right? That's when we experience burnout. That's when we experience exhaustion. That's when we want to quit. On the flip side of it, if we have positive emotions that we're experiencing, you're still getting a surge in those biochemical changes that are happening, but it's having a different impact on that nervous system. So instead of your nervous system feeling overwhelmed, you're like that row team that's working together really succinct, really effectively and efficiently, okay? And instead of your resilience being worn down, you're building up that resilience. So think of it in construction season, which I think we're all getting pretty accustomed to this time of the year, right? You would never think about leaving for a road trip during construction season on an empty tank of gas, would you? Yet we do that to our bodies every day. You only have so much energy that you wake up with in the morning. So let's save that energy. Let's conserve that energy. Every time you do that quick coherence technique, you're putting into that energy account instead of draining out of the energy account. So when you think about that, when I say practice it during times that you're not feeling stressed, you're really getting a big bang for that because now you're building up that resilience. You're putting gas into your tank to get you through those times when life does get challenging for us, okay? This is the slide that is incredibly important. Why this is so important is because of these two chemicals here. All of us have probably heard of cortisol before, right? What's that also known as? Stress hormone. Absolutely, the stress hormone. So every time we experience a negative emotion, we get a surge of cortisol. So I'm driving down the road, somebody cuts me off, dose of cortisol, right? I come to work, Chelsea sees me and she says, Christy, how's your morning going? Oh my God, you are not going to believe what happened to me this morning. I was driving into work and some idiot cut me off on the interstate. Dose of cortisol. I'm going to get my coffee. Lauren sees me in the break room and she says, Christy, how's your morning going? And I feel compelled, of course, to share with her how my morning went, right? Get another dose of cortisol. Why is this important? Because when I am producing cortisol, which is on the stress side, I cannot produce DHEA, which is on the positive emotional side. That's important because cortisol stays in our system for up to 13 hours. Every time I give myself a dose of cortisol, I am making huge withdrawals from an energy account. Get the importance of this? Know why you're exhausted and run down at the end of the day? Hello? Cortisol and DHEA are from the same building block. Okay, so when I'm producing cortisol, I cannot produce DHEA. DHEA is such a powerful vitality enhancer, it's actually been banned from the Olympics. People used to take DHEA and it would give them an extra, an advantage in the Olympics. They can't do that anymore. So when you want to picture what DHEA looks like, any of you have any little 2 or 3-year-olds in your life? That is one big bundle of DHEA running around. All right? Who doesn't want a little bit more of that in their life? So every time you go ahead and you get that dose of that DHEA, you're putting into that energy account. Okay? Here is something that's important to realize. This little graph here deals with our autonomic nervous system. Okay? So when I'm climbing a flight of stairs, I want my autonomic nervous system to speed up, right? I want my heart rate to go up. I want my breathing to increase because I would really like to make it to the top of the stairs. When I'm going to bed, I don't want to have that same effect. So that's when I want my autonomic nervous system to slow down. So when you're talking breath work, that's what you're having a direct impact on. So remember I said the first 2 steps of that quick coherence technique was heart-focused breathing? Just by doing that deep breathing, you are getting that benefit of that autonomic nervous system kicking in, and you are stopping your cortisol from being released. So remember I said before, sometimes I don't want to go to my happy place. I don't want to experience the happy emotions, or maybe it's not appropriate. I can do that breath work and I can at least stop that cortisol from being produced. Okay? So when you're having a bad day or your patients are having a bad day and you encourage them, you have to breathe, make it count. Very easy to do. And you're at least stopping the negative drain. You're not depleting that energy account. All right? If you take it the step further and you could add in that heart feeling, now instead of draining that energy account, now you're putting energy into that account. And that's what's going to change your baseline. So before I started doing heart math and I started making sure that I was practicing my quick coherence technique, my stress level, truly my baseline was probably way up here. Now I would say my baseline's more here. It's going to take a lot more for me to react than what it used to. I still am going to have a reaction. There are some days that I still really have to make it my full intention to make that switch. And I can promise you that the more that you practice this, when I first started, before I really started practicing my heart math on a regular basis, I can honestly say I was probably about 70 to 80% of the time on the negative side of the emotional landscape. I can tell you now, I am probably there maybe about 20 to 30% of the time. So I've done a complete flip on that. So things that was easy for me to look to the negative side of things, that's not where I automatically go now anymore. I have trained my mind and my heart to process things differently. So again, like I said before, are there times that it's appropriate to go to the happy place? No. But I can surely have compassion. I can have empathy. I can practice peacefulness. And is that not a wonderful gift to be able to not only have for yourself, but for the patients that you're working with? I think that's a pretty nice thing. So if you were to ask me out of any of these slides, what's the most important one? I would say people being able to understand the emotional landscape. I can also tell you when I explain to people cortisol and DHEA and how that affects their system, you really have people's eyes and ears perk up. All of you that were in this room when I started talking about this, that's when I saw the pens get picked up and started taking notes. This is the part that's really important for people to be aware of, because this is the part that they can really see and have complete control over. You can educate them till you're blue in the face, but until they can see how that really is going to have an impact on them and what they're really going to get for their bang for the buck, they don't care about all that other stuff. Tell me what I'm really going to get out of it. And this is where you can really explain that. And when I take the time to go over with my patients and our employees this part of it, they see the big difference of it and they understand it. Okay? In case you can't tell, I'm a little bit passionate about this. So I thank you for the opportunity to be able to come and share this with you all. And I wish you the best of luck. You all have very important jobs. And again, if behavior change was easy, we wouldn't be having meetings like this, right? So keep up the good work, everyone. You guys are really doing good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.